I'm Stuart Malin. I first went to Hurstmonceux in 1955 as a vacation student. No, 1956. I've reached the age when these things get less certain. I went there as a vacation student in 1956. That's when I first saw the place. And then I went back again as a student for another couple of years, and then finally started work there in 1958. Now you're going to want to know when I left, which is tricky. I was there for a long time. I got married and went and spent 3 years in South Africa as the Cape Observer at the Radcliffe Observatory. I was still working for Hurstmonceux, but on secondment, as it were.
Right.
Came back to Hurstmonceux after that and carried on working there until about 1980. It was just a chance thing that happened when I was a student. I'd always, well, not always, but from school days I'd been vaguely interested in astronomy, and being in the Boy Scouts I used to go out on night hikes and I could identify Orion and things like that. But never thought of it as a career until a friend of mine at college pointed out a letter on the physics notice board saying that they were having a vacation course at Hurstmonceux and people should apply to wherever. And this was a revelation that it was something you could do as a career. And I thought, that's for me. There are lots and lots of bedrooms. It's when it was the Hearts of Oak during the war, they had lots of people staying there. And up underneath the eaves, there's a whole lot of bedrooms, which were all very comfortable and very nice, and about as many bathrooms as there were bedrooms. And being young, we didn't need that many bathrooms. One would have done a lot of us once a fortnight. But we'd never had to clean the bath, you just go on to another bathroom. And also, there were carp in the moat at the time. There was huge numbers of carp. As students, we thought, wow, you know, that food. So Nico Bersma, who was one of the students, he was a Dutchman, he brought his own bicycle with him for some strange reason, one of those big old-fashioned... Anyway, he got this thing organised quite well. They had these government-issue wicker waste paper baskets. And the technique was to put a brick in the bottom of that, and then a length of string on the top of it, and then you could lower it over the bridge into the moat. You put a small slice of bread on top of the brick, and as you lowered it down, waste paper basket and brick would sink, bread would float, fish would come round in their hordes, and then you yank. And they were quite good at getting out of the way at the last minute, in spite of their numbers, but we would get about 1 carp every 3 pulls. And we thought, great, we'll have carp, you know, live like royalty. And they tasted of mud. It's horrible. So we thought the solution to this, you know, we're supposed to be scientists for heaven's sake, so there's a way around this. It's because they've been living in mud. The secret is to wash the mud out of them. So we got one particularly nice carp and took him up to one of these many spare bathrooms, filled it up with nice fresh water, and gave him some cornflakes and left him there to get on with it. And next morning we came back and there he was, lying on the floor going, he jumped out. But fortunately every bathroom had, not a bath mat, but a sort of duckboard thing. So we collected them up from half a dozen bathrooms and put him back in the water. He didn't seem to be any the worse for wear. And covered it with duckboards, and that worked. And we kept him for a week. We changed his water daily, and it did get pretty mucky. Fed him on cornflakes, which he seemed to enjoy. And then at the end of the week, we were ready for our feast. So, okay, Nico, your fish, you go and kill him. No, I've done the catch him. Somebody else can kill him. And when it came to it, we'd all grown so fond of this fish, we couldn't kill the damn thing. So eventually he got chucked back in the moat. I wasn't a great getter-up in those days. Well, in those days, I'm still not. So what I would do would be, say, oh my God, I should have been at work half an hour ago. Put my jacket and trousers and a tie over my pyjamas. Go across the courtyard into the office and mutter something about just going to the library, pick up something and then go out again. Then I could go back and have my breakfast and get dressed and looking at the library and then go and do some work. I didn't feel guilty. I worked like the clappers, and a lot of people did. A lot of them didn't, to be fair. There were some really lazy devils there, but no, we were self-motivated. And I would go back in the evening and work late, and I put in the hours, and I loved the work. It was a privilege to work there, so I wasn't trying to avoid putting in the hours. It's just that I didn't like getting up. He was just known as AR.
Right.
And out in front of the castle, nearest to the door, there's a parking space marked AR, and nobody would dare park there. And when he used the phone, normally when the phone rings, you pick it up, the internal one, and they say who they are and what they want. Not Wooly, he would just say, "Come to my office," and you were supposed to deduce who it was. A bit like the Queen, not England. You don't put England on British stamps. It's known to be England, and he was known to be the AR. And I was working in the magnetic department at the time, and the head of the department was Herbert Finch, the one who nearly impaled himself on the 28-inch when he was at Greenwich. Anyway, he was terrified of Wooly, and he was quite a senior man. He was a principal scientific officer, one of the heads of the department there. And the phone rang, and obviously Wooly said, "Come to my office." He don't say why or anything like this. And Finch, he sort of went into a flat panic. He sort of straightened his tie, pulled his socks up, and went to the loo, and then eventually went and saw Wooly, this lovely semicircular window, and Wooly's desk was over there, and he had quite a nice carpet, quite a deep pile. And you knock on the door, and again he didn't waste words, you just hear, "Come!" Open the door and go in, and he had these, one of the earliest people I know to have these half glasses, which people used to have, these reading glasses.
Oh, yes.
And he would look up from his desk and he would watch you over the top of his glasses, walking towards him through this deep pile of carpet, sinking deeper and deeper and deeper and getting smaller and smaller. And only when you'd been through this humiliating process, he'd tell you what you'd come for, what he called you for, which wasn't necessarily bad, often was. Anyway, he'd obviously called for Finch and they'd knock on the door. He said, "Come," and Finch duly came in and he looked up and said, "Oh, Finch, just a moment." And he turned back to this microscope and carried on for another 10 minutes. Hell, I was embarrassed. I was just a student there because the head of the department there, who was obviously wetting himself nearly, just sort of standing there going from one foot to another while he just deliberately kept him waiting. Anyway, he did fight his corner to get the Isaac Newton telescope built. Mm. And it was built at Herstmonceux. Well, it wasn't built there, it was installed at Herstmonceux, which was an absolutely lousy site. It eventually moved to a good one, but I was asking him about this. Wouldn't it be much more sensible to have held out for a good site where the telescope could be used properly? He said, well, that wasn't an option. It was going to be a prestige thing if it was UK or nowhere. And he didn't feel guilty about it because the money would only have gone on another battle cruiser or something otherwise. So he was fighting all the time against the defence budget. It was also a social place. There was an awful lot of intermingling between the different halves, particularly in the days of the hostel, when they had the men's hostel and the women's hostel in huts opposite the entrance to the observatory. And very many of these chasings ended up as marriages. And every time a member of staff got married, there'd be a collection. Everybody put in their half-crown or whatever. And then there'd be a presentation from the Astronomer Royal. And everybody would assemble in the staircase hall. And Sir Richard, or Dick, or whatever he was called by then, would come in and call for silence. And then he would announce the number of the marriage, which he did in the same way as you number comets. So I think I was 1963F.
Anyway, Stuart, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
I've enjoyed it hugely, as you can imagine.
Thank you for sharing.
Great times, lovely to have an excuse to remember them.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much.